This is Drone 8 video of an FBI raid in progress at a multi-million-dollar mansion in the exclusive and gated Avila community.
On paper, Harbor Cay was nothing more than a private retreat. A senator's quiet island property off the coast of South Carolina. A place for donor weekends, security briefings, and closed-door policy talks. But when FBI and IC units cut their engines 2 miles offshore, nobody on the island knew they had already lost control. By sunrise, federal agents would be standing beneath a guest house that wasn't a guest house. Behind a steel wall that wasn't on any blueprint. Inside a bunker holding $6.2 billion in cash, 22 tons of narcotics, encrypted servers, and a list of names that would make Washington stop breathing. And the strangest part was this. The raid didn't begin with the island. It began with a dead phone in a warehouse outside Phoenix. For almost 3 years, Senator Malcolm Reddick had built a reputation as the kind of man nobody questioned. He spoke slowly. He dressed plainly. He never raised his voice on camera. In public, he was the senator who wanted secure borders, clean ports, and tougher penalties for traffickers. He stood beside federal agents at press conferences. He toured IC facilities. He praised the DEA during budget hearings. His speeches were always polished. His message was always clear. America had to take down criminal networks before they reached American families. That was the public version. The private version lived behind shell companies, offshore logistics firms, and a coastal security contractor called Meridian Shield. Meridian Shield claimed it provided maritime protection for wealthy clients, private ports, and humanitarian cargo routes. Its offices were in Charleston, Miami, and Houston. Its website showed patrol boats, radar systems, and smiling veterans in tactical gear. But what federal investigators eventually learned was that Meridian Shield didn't just protect shipments. It selected which shipments disappeared. The first crack came in Phoenix. A joint DEA and FBI task force had been tracking a drug corridor stretching from Sonora into Arizona, then east through New Mexico and Texas. The case was supposed to be routine: storage units, tractor trailers, small warehouses, cartel-linked distributors. Then, inside a locked office at a warehouse near South 35th Avenue, agents found a phone taped behind a breaker panel. It was old. Almost useless. The battery was swollen. The screen was cracked. There were no contacts saved. But when digital analysts pulled the data, they found one repeated phrase buried in encrypted message fragments. Island cleared. At first, nobody understood it. An island didn't fit the case. This was desert trafficking. Border movement. Highway routes. Cash cars. Fake produce loads. Nothing pointed to the Atlantic coast. Then analysts found another phrase. Reddock guest window. It looked like a typo. Maybe a place. Maybe a person. Maybe bad shorthand from someone typing fast. But one analyst in Quantico noticed something others had missed. The spelling changed across messages. Sometimes Reddock. Sometimes Red Dock. And once, only once, Reddick. That was the first time Senator Malcolm Reddick's name entered the investigation. Not as a suspect. As a possible mistake. That mistake changed everything. Within days, the FBI's Public Corruption Unit was quietly looped in. ICE Homeland Security investigations began reviewing port records. The DEA went back through old seizures looking for repeated patterns. The question wasn't whether drugs were moving. They were. The question was why certain shipments never got stopped, even when they were flagged. In Houston, containers flagged for inspection were rerouted at the last minute. In Savannah, manifests were corrected minutes before customs holds were issued. In Baltimore, one cargo inspection team had been reassigned during the exact 4-hour window when a refrigerated container passed through with false medical supply paperwork. Each event looked like bureaucracy. Bad timing. Port confusion. The kind of mistake that happens in a system processing millions of tons of cargo. But when investigators stacked the events together, a pattern appeared. And every time the pattern appeared, Meridian Shield was nearby. A patrol contract. A private dock authorization. A port security consultation. A donor event. A political fundraiser. That was when the case stopped being about drugs. It became about access. By the time federal prosecutors in D.C. opened a sealed grand jury file, Senator Reddick was still publicly calling for tougher enforcement. He was still appearing on cable news. He was still sitting in classified briefings. And nobody in the public had any idea that federal agents were already watching his island from the sky. Harbor Cay sat 12 miles off the coast, reachable by helicopter, boat, or a private dock hidden behind mangroves. The official property included a main house, 2 guest villas, a boathouse, and a maintenance shed. The unofficial property was harder to explain. Thermal imaging showed heat signatures under the southern half of the island, where county records listed only rock and storage drainage. Ground scans suggested reinforced tunnels. Satellite imagery revealed delivery vessels arriving at odd hours, usually between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning. But the island's security was unusual. Not loud. Not flashy. No obvious armed guards at the beach. No military-style towers. No dramatic patrols. Just cameras hidden in palm trunks, motion sensors near the dock, and a private communication system that didn't touch commercial networks. The kind of security designed by someone who didn't want to look secure. One night in late August, a Coast Guard surveillance aircraft captured a strange scene. A white utility boat approached the island with no running lights. It stopped beside the boathouse for 11 minutes. Then 3 men unloaded what looked like wrapped equipment cases. Not bags. Not crates. Cases. Long black sealed. The next morning, Reddick appeared in Washington, giving a speech about dismantling narco-trafficking networks. Behind him, an American flag. In front of him, cameras. And beneath his island, agents believed, a criminal archive was growing. But belief wasn't enough. Federal prosecutors needed proof that connected the island to the shipments, the money, and the senator himself. That proof came from a woman named Lena Morales. Lena wasn't a cartel figure. She wasn't a politician. She wasn't a millionaire. She was a freight compliance clerk in Savannah, Georgia, making $54,000 a year and raising her younger brother after their mother died. Her job was simple: review container holds, confirm inspection codes, and update release statuses. Then one night, she noticed a container marked for secondary inspection had vanished from the queue. Not cleared. Not transferred. Vanished. When she asked her supervisor, he told her to stop chasing ghosts. The next day, a man she had never met approached her in the parking garage. He didn't threaten her directly. He didn't need to. He said her brother had a basketball game Friday at 6:30. Then he handed her a sticky note with a container number and said, "Some mistakes are safer when they stay mistakes." Lena kept the note. 3 weeks later, after another suspicious container disappeared, she called a federal tip line from a gas station outside Savannah. That call became the first human voice inside the case. Until then, investigators had patterns. Now they had fear. And fear had a direction. Lena agreed to cooperate. She wore a recording device during 2 meetings with her supervisor. She turned over internal screenshots. She identified a private contractor who kept appearing in the port system with emergency override privileges. That contractor was Meridian Shield. But the bigger break came when she photographed a clearance code attached to a shipment listed as disaster relief water filtration units. The shipment had come from Cartagena. It was bound for Charleston. And the final authorized receiver was a company called Palmetto Civic Development. That company had no staff. No office. No vehicles. Its registered address was a mailbox in Columbia, South Carolina. Its largest donor, through 3 layers of nonprofit transfers, was Senator Malcolm Reddick's leadership fund. That was the first financial bridge. Then came the second. ICE analysts traced payments from Palmetto Civic Development to island construction crews. Those crews had been paid for shoreline reinforcement and storm bunker upgrades. But no county permit showed bunker work. No contractor listed underground excavation. No engineer filed a structural report. Yet over 18 months, more than $41 million moved through construction invoices tied to Harbor Cay. Concrete. Air filtration. Industrial generators. Steel doors. Server cooling systems. Enough materials to build something far larger than a storm shelter. The island was no longer a theory. It was a target. Still, the raid almost didn't happen. That was the mid-twist no one inside the task force expected. 2 weeks before the operation, a sealed warrant request was delayed. Not denied. Delayed. A senior DOJ official flagged the affidavit for evidentiary sensitivity and asked whether agents had exhausted less invasive options. That phrase set off alarms. Because in a case involving a sitting senator, delays were dangerous. Evidence could move. Witnesses could disappear. Servers could be wiped. And within 48 hours of the delay, something changed on Harbor Cay. Satellite images showed increased movement at the dock. A yacht registered through a Cayman holding company arrived and stayed for 6 hours. Thermal scans showed unusual heat near the underground structure. A truck left a Charleston cold storage facility and drove to a private marina under police escort from off-duty officers. Someone knew. Not everything, but enough. The task force began searching inward. Access logs, draft warrant circulation, email metadata, meeting records. That was when investigators found the leak. A deputy counsel inside the DOJ's Legislative Affairs Office had been quietly forwarding calendar summaries to an encrypted address linked to Meridian Shield. Not full case files. Not evidence packets. Just timing. Enough to warn the network when pressure was coming. Enough to keep Reddick one step ahead. The investigation had a leak inside the building meant to protect it. So the raid plan changed. No broad briefing. No long countdown. No multi-agency conference room with 20 people and a screen. The final operation was planned in a compartmentalized group so small that several participating agents did not know the target until they were already in motion. The warrant was approved under seal. The execution window was moved up. And at 4:48 a.m., 3 boats moved toward Harbor Cay in darkness. FBI hostage rescue team operators approached from the North Dock. ICE HSI agents moved through the boathouse. DEA tactical units secured the service path leading to the guest villas. A Coast Guard cutter held position offshore. Above them, a helicopter circled without lights. The first breach was almost silent. Agents cut power to the outer gate and entered through the maintenance road. 2 private guards surrendered immediately. A third reached for a radio and was tackled before he could speak. Inside the main house, agents found staff members asleep in separate quarters, phones collected in a kitchen safe. But Senator Reddick wasn't in the main house. He wasn't in the guest villa. He wasn't near the dock. For 16 minutes, nobody could find him. Then an FBI breacher noticed something wrong in the wine cellar. The room was too cold. Not cellar cold. Server room cold. Behind a rack of imported bottles, the wall gave off a faint mechanical vibration. A technician scanned it and found a keypad hidden behind a wooden panel. The first code failed. The second failed. On the third attempt, using numbers recovered from a Meridian Shield access file, the wall clicked. Then it moved. Not like a door. Like a vault. 4 inches of reinforced steel slid behind a false stone frame, revealing a descending concrete corridor lit by red emergency strips. That was the moment the island stopped pretending. Agents moved down single file. At the bottom was a blast door with biometric access. A portable cutting unit burned through the lock housing. Smoke filled the corridor. The door opened into a room so large the first agents inside stopped talking. Rows of vacuum-sealed cash bricks were stacked on industrial pallets. Not hidden in suitcases. Not buried in barrels. Organized. Labeled. Wrapped by denomination and origin. US dollars. Euros. Mexican pesos. Colombian pesos. Floor scales stood beside counting machines. A whiteboard listed weekly intake totals. And in black marker, one number had been circled twice. 6.2B. But that wasn't the only room. Past the cash vault, agents found a refrigerated storage chamber. Inside were sealed narcotics packages stacked from floor to ceiling. Cocaine bricks. Fentanyl precursor containers. Methamphetamine loads. The final DEA weight estimate would exceed 22 tons. One agent later described the room as looking less like a stash house and more like a private inventory warehouse for an empire. Then came the servers. Behind another secure door was a digital operations center with 12 racks of encrypted storage, satellite uplinks, burner devices, and monitors showing port feeds from Charleston, Savannah, Houston, and Miami. This was not a retirement bunker. It was a command center. And at the far end of it, seated at a metal table in a gray sweatshirt, was Senator Malcolm Reddick. Not shouting. Not running. Not shocked. Just watching a screen that had already gone black. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then the lead FBI agent told him to stand. Reddick asked one question. Which office signed it? Not, what is this? Not, there must be a mistake. Not, call my lawyer. He wanted to know which office signed the warrant. That question told investigators what they had suspected for months. He knew the system. He believed the system belonged to him. The arrest was quiet. No dramatic confession. No speech. Just handcuffs, a gray hallway, and a man who had spent years speaking about law enforcement being escorted by the same agencies he had praised on television. But the final realization came after the raid, when digital analysts began opening the server files. The island wasn't only storing drugs and money. It was storing leverage. There were surveillance clips from hotel rooms, recorded calls with port officials, payment logs tied to local police officers, donation schedules connected to political action committees, and a folder labeled insurance. Inside that folder were names: judges, contractors, lobbyists, customs officials, business executives, 3 former federal employees, and 1 active DOJ staffer. The bunker wasn't just a hiding place. It was a control room for corruption. Reddick's network worked because it didn't depend on one criminal group. It connected systems that were never supposed to touch. Cartel suppliers moved product. Shipping brokers disguised it. Port insiders cleared it. Security contractors protected it. Non-profits washed the money. Political funds gave it legitimacy. And public fear kept attention pointed in the wrong direction. Every speech Reddick gave about border security made him look like an enemy of the very network he was helping manage. That was the genius of it. And the cruelty. Because while billions moved under private docks and campaign dinners, real people paid the price. In Jacksonville, a father named Marcus Bell lost his 19-year-old daughter after she took a pill she thought was prescription pain medication. It wasn't. The pill came from a batch traced to precursor chemicals moved through one of the same protected shipping lanes. Marcus didn't know anything about Harbor K. He didn't know about Meridian Shield. He didn't know a senator's bunker might be connected to the poison that reached his daughter's college apartment. He only knew that one night, she stopped answering her phone. In El Paso, an IC analyst reviewing financial transfers found another story hidden in the numbers. A small trucking company had been forced into the network after its owner fell behind on debt. The owner, a woman named Rosa Jimenez, thought she was moving electronics. Then she found powder residue inside a trailer wall. When she tried to walk away, her drivers were threatened. Her accounts were frozen. Her company became a disposable piece of a machine she never agreed to join. That was how systems like Reddick survived. They didn't just recruit criminals. They trapped ordinary people between fear and silence. After the raid, the DOJ moved fast. The senator was indicted under seal before the public announcement. Meridian Shield's offices in Charleston, Miami, and Houston were searched the same morning. 12 bank accounts were frozen. 15 port officials were suspended pending investigation. By the end of the first week, 43 people had been arrested. By the end of the second, that number climbed to 91. But the biggest question remained unanswered. How long had this been happening? The answer came from financial ledgers found on the island servers. The earliest entries were 7 years old. 7 years. That meant the network had survived election cycles, agency leadership changes, port audits, budget hearings, and multiple federal task forces. Not because nobody cared. Because the corruption was positioned between the people who cared and the evidence they needed. Every time investigators got close, a shipment changed route. A witness backed out. A report was revised. A warrant slowed down. A file disappeared into procedural review. That was the final shape of the case. Not one dirty senator with a secret island. A system built to make truth arrive too late. When the story finally broke, cable news focused on the obvious images. The cash. The drugs. The bunker. The senator in handcuffs. But inside federal offices, the deeper fear was quieter. If one political figure could sit inside public briefings while controlling private trafficking routes, then what else had passed through trusted rooms unnoticed? If one island could hold $6.2 billion and 22 tons of drugs, how many smaller versions existed without helicopters overhead and cameras at the dock? And if the first clue was a broken phone behind a breaker panel in Phoenix, how close did the entire case come to never existing at all? That is the part people remember. Not just the raid. The margin. One clerk who kept a note. One analyst who noticed a spelling change. One investigator who questioned why legal shipments kept moving like ghosts. That was all it took to expose an empire. And that was almost not enough. In the end, Harbor K became more than a crime scene. It became a warning. Because corruption rarely announces itself with sirens. It hides in paperwork. It borrows official language. It wears a suit. It funds campaigns. It praises law enforcement in public while quietly selling access in private. And sometimes, the person promising to protect the system is the one using it as cover. So the question isn't just how a bunker like that could exist beneath a senator's private island.